If you have been enjoying listening to the stories of entrepreneurs across Edinburgh, then why not subscribe? If you're on YouTube, you can hit the red button down below and hit the bell to get notifications. Or if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, then subscribe to the podcast. We hope you enjoy the show.
Guys, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us on. Yes,
the two of us. Our first chuckle brother, two people on. So it's great to have you. So give us a snapshot of who you are and your business.
Okay, so I'm Jonny. I'm the managing director of Jenkins Fabrications. We're a third generation steel fabrication business. We've been running for over 65 years. And yeah, I've been in the business for about 15 years now. So.
And I'm Shona, I'm Jonny's other half, I'm his wife, and I'm finance director at Jenkins Fabrications.
Amazing. So it's great to have you both join us. As I said, this is our first one. So it's interesting to hear both your perspectives on the journey through business. And I'm sure we'll hear about the joys of working with your other half as well.
So you can tell us the story and then you can tell us the truth.
I can tell you exactly. I'll just sit here and listen.
And go, no, that's not how it happens.
So take us back. Jenkins Fabrications, you said, has been going a long time. Let's go back to the beginning. How did it start? And then a little bit about how you guys ended up there.
Cool. Yeah. So, 65 years old. It was started by my grandfather, John. Originally, we've gone through a recent rebrand. The name was John Jenkins and Son. And that's how we were known all the years. So he started it in 1958. And there was like 4 or 5 employees at that point. My dad got into it in the 70s and kind of pushed into construction and things like that. So he kind of built the business up a little bit from there. So yeah, I had, growing up, it was like family business. It was all you ever listened to, at the dinner table and morning to nights and stuff. And in a positive way, it was great because you just were obviously absorbing so many things from listening, and I didn't realize that at the time. So, my mum's side as well, they had a business as well. So both sets of grandparents, all I really knew was like family business. So, it's obviously helped now, I think. But yeah, it was a great upbringing in terms of learning about that business side of it, from cash flow to staff to like everything, customers and pricing jobs and stuff like that. So yeah, although I wasn't involved in it directly, it was obviously absorbing stuff. Take it all in. So yeah.
And similarly, you've got a family business background as well in terms of your family.
Yeah. So my mum's father, my grandpa, he had a business making animal feed. So it was in manufacturing as well, but slightly different. He was 4th generation. So like family businesses have just kind of run in our blood for both of us. Yeah. I remember spending so much time at my grandpa's mill at his factory where he produced the animal feed, just running around. Like there used to be like chutes and stuff that we definitely weren't meant to be sliding down. It was definitely for animal feed, but this is like on a Sunday afternoon rather than a Monday morning. So yeah, just family business just kind of runs in our blood.
And despite that, you both went into corporate careers, didn't you?
Yeah. Didn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, that looks too stressful. We'll do something else.
I kind of grown up, I was just like, I don't want anything to do with that. And I don't know why. I'm trying to think of the reason why I didn't want to. I could see the stresses it caused mum and dad. It's tough running a small business and employing people and dealing with customers and everything. So I felt I wanted to kind of go in my own kind of path and kind of do my own thing. So I ended up going to university and I became a surveyor. And it was great. It was amazing learning everything that I had to learn then. But ultimately at one point there was just something pulling me back, and I took the plunge in 2010 to join the business. So, and Shona was obviously the same as well with her.
Yeah, so I studied at university, took a graduate job at RBS, worked there for 8 years. It was very much a sort of 9-to-5 corporate job. I just didn't see that as my future forever, but I kind of fell into it and worked my way through there. And they were great support. I did a lot of sort of women in business courses with RBS and learned a lot about business, and never saw myself running my own business. It was meeting Jonny that was the only way that was possible for me. But yeah, it seemed like a natural move after 8 years there to come and help Jonny.
Mm-hmm. And live the dream in steel fabrication.
It was part of our marriage contract.
Yeah.
It was like,
you will work in this business.
Yeah. But Jenkins Fabrications wasn't the start of your entrepreneurial journey.
No, so I didn't really think about it at the time, but there's obviously stuff I've learned over the years, and seeing mum and dad, it's kind of made me think about business and stuff. And we used to play in a kind of social sevens rugby team, and we used to go abroad and traveling and stuff like that and playing tournaments. And I always remember coming back from them thinking, God, Edinburgh's like a rugby city, doesn't have one of these events. And I went back and I contacted Edinburgh Ackies, and I just said, I'm thinking about running like a 10-a-side tournament. And they just went, yeah, fine, come down, we'll tell us the dates and we'll do it. And all of a sudden I had this event that was starting, and so it started as a small event, 16 teams. One of my mates helped me kind of organise the structure of the tournament, but over the years we ended up having, the last one we had like about 5,000 people. We had teams from across Europe playing in it, a lot of local teams, we had bars, catering, everything like that. But that was the starting point for me, being like, this is brilliant. I love the business side of it. I got a huge buzz from it, and it was, again, you're managing teams, you're managing all the bars, costs, cash flow, and you're obviously ultimately trying to make sure there's a wee bit at the end in the business that's left. So that was like the starting point that got me going, I've enjoyed what I've done as a surveyor, but I think I need to make a plunge into business in some fashion. So you
were doing this as a sideline to the surveying sideline. Yeah, okay.
I would love to have done it full time, but I'd have no money. I'd be broke. It's one of these businesses. It was like a hobby, basically. I just loved running the event. I loved rugby. I loved seeing all that happen.
I used to go to the event not knowing Jonny or that he was the one running it.
Yeah.
So,
is that right?
Yeah, like we used to go with friends.
So it was in Saltbridge. You used to get like everybody piling in, and they come in and watch it, beers, drinks for the day, and it was, I ultimately brought a couple other people. I needed to get people in the business to help me. So I had 2 or 3 of my mates, right, I'll help you out and we'll do it. So, but it was on the side. So it was really hard trying to do that at night. And if I billed all my hours out for the amount of hours I was spending on it, like it'd be in so much debt. So, so it's kind of a job that you were doing that you just for the love of it. So, ultimately I would have liked to have done it full time, but that just wouldn't have been possible.
But interestingly, as you were kind of investing all that time in there, the lessons you were learning, what would you say are some of the key learnings that you took from that?
Just like, do you know what? You see some other events that are running these days, and people have, there's been some in the news and stuff like that, people cocking up events and getting the wrath of it. And I'm actually quite proud that we actually ran that event for 6 years and don't think we had any major issues that I know about. But so it's the managing of everything. It was like I say, like cash. I had to manage sponsors, make sure that I got money in from sponsorship, made sure that teams were paying their bills. So you were doing everything, invoicing, everything. So I couldn't put it down to one thing. I just think the overall picture was just brilliant for me. So it was good.
And you're at RBS at this point.
I'm at RBS. Don't know Jonny at this point.
Don't know Jonny. It's all
turning up at the rugby event. No idea who he is.
And so give us just
I was probably crying in the background like this. Get this event over, please.
So this isn't like a dating podcast, but then how did you guys meet? And then, what was that story?
Sure, I can tell you.
Jonny and I used to work out at the same gym, and it made eyes across the gym. Jonny slipped into my DMs on Facebook.
I knew that was going to come.
It was Facebook at the time. It wasn't even Instagram. Asked me out on a date, and it's actually a funny story. So he asked me out on a date, agreed to it, and then he cancelled on me 3 times.
Oh,
so he's lucky. I don't know what made me keep going back for more.
What were you? Okay, come on now. What were your excuses then? 3 times, flipping it.
A punctured lung and hospital stay.
Oh, wow. But come on, give us a real excuse.
But the first photo I sent her was a selfie of me in hospital with a mask on.
I was like, wow, you've really gone to extremes to get out of this date. But actually, on our first date, one of the things that we really bonded over was business. And that sounds really sad, but like you spoke about your family business, and then I spoke about my experiences with family business. I've got an uncle that runs a big business. Grandpa obviously ran a big business, and we actually bonded, and it showed that we had a lot of the same sort of family values.
Yeah. Because I think I found with my wife as well, like even though you might be the one in the business, it's all in.
Oh yeah,
like
you're
it's
all
in. Whether you're in it day to day or not, like everyone's involved, and
100%.
no matter what, you need the full backing to make those decisions.
It wasn't that weird for me for Shona to come into the business.
No, I'd lived and breathed it for 5 years before I actually made the move.
My mum and dad had done it. I'd seen my grandparents on my mum's side do it. So it was one of these things I almost kind of felt it was a kind of natural progression. It was going to happen at some point. So as long as Shona was wanting to. But yeah, you you are all in. So regardless if she didn't work for us or not, it's one of these things. Running a business of any size is just, it can take over your life at times.
It's all consuming. It's 24/7. So yeah, as we used to speak about it all before I even started working.
I bored her then, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it worked. I guess because it worked.
But what disciplines do you have though, just to make sure that you can make a bit of a break between work and family life?
Yeah, well, like, you know, ultimately I'll drive home, and I know that we've got 3 young kids, and I think it's really making that line of like, right, okay, this is family time now. Yeah. We're home. There might be a couple of major issues we need to talk about, but if we don't have to talk about it, let's wait till tomorrow, because the problem's going to be there tomorrow. So, yeah, we do quite well at that, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I'm usually so stressed having had a day with the kids that I throw them at you and say, there you go, your turn. And there's no time to talk about work. Yeah. But you say, like, at home in your house when you were a child, your dad used to come in from work and he'd say, right, no telly on, turn off the telly, let's sit and chat. And then they would sit and chat about work. And
it's so vivid. Like, used to, and it's just good memories, but we had a small little telly on like the top of the fridge, and my sister and I, you know, were like, right, Neighbours is on, we're watching Neighbours. And Dad would walk in and like just without turn the telly off and sit down, and like, we don't have telly on at dinner, which is fine. But then they just talk about, there'd be a lot of business chat, and we're going, I want to see what Toadfish is getting up to. Like, you know.
So I think we make a conscious decision, like, not to like talk about work too much.
And I don't mean that my mum and dad talked about business all the time. There's obviously a lot, but
it was all consuming for them.
But it was good memories.
Yeah.
And so you're 3rd generation.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's the thing I've got on my back at the moment. So it's first week in the job, and I'd made the big plunge to come over, and I was getting people say to me, like, what are you doing? Why are you joining your family steel fabrication business? Why are you doing that sort of thing? So I wanted to do it, but I still had to, a couple of things. Should I do this and all the rest of it? So first week in one of my dad's old customers came in just to see him, and he said, all right, so you're in now. And I was like, yeah, I'm in now. So that's right. So you're the one that screws it all up. And I was like, what? And he's like, well, 1st generation starts it, 2nd generation builds it, and the 3rd one screws it all up. And he didn't use the word screw. He, a little bit more explicit than that. But I literally from week 1, it was like, oh God, right, this is quite real now. I've got to start thinking about this and, trying to keep the legacy of the business going. So
and you're coming in as a sort of like surveyor that's worked in Edinburgh, and you're coming into quite a dirty manufacturing, and you've got guys there that have worked for 30 years. So you've got to gain their respect, and that always sits on your shoulder as well, doesn't it?
Yes, it was really tricky from the start. I mean, I like I say, I didn't do an apprenticeship. I didn't learn the trade. I worked in the business as a kid, like labouring and helping, but I didn't really get to that point where I was like actually on the tools. So it's a massive thing in the back of my head constantly that I don't go in there saying you've done that wrong or do that quicker, because you got to give them respect. They're the ones that know what they're doing, and ultimately there's a bit of common respect there that I'm not going to come out and tell you how to do your job. I just want you to make sure you're doing it to the best of your ability. So, but it takes a while for these things to kind of evolve. So,
and luckily you've not screwed it up yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, let's not say yet.
So when you then went into the business initially, you weren't actually in the classic fabrication side.
No, so I think the business was, it was developing quite a lot at that point, and there was opportunities for a lot of more work to come in. My dad was struggling in the office. So there was 3 people in the office, mum, dad, and one other person. So when I went in, it was clear that being from a bit more of a corporate background with processes and procedures and everything like that, I could add a wee bit more value at that part of the business. So yes, there was a plan for me to start doing a wee bit on the tools and start gaining a bit more knowledge of that. But it was a million miles an hour as soon as I got into the office. It was just crazy. So I had no time to say, right, I'm out for the day to go in the tools, or a month or 6 months or whatever. So yeah, I going back, I wish I had that time, but it's, I can't say it's not worked out the way it has. So, and I learn as much as I can. I get information off guys, tell me about that process. If I don't know it, tell me how to fix it. I don't know it, so explain it to me. And I'm the first to hold my hand up and say, well, I don't know that. Yeah. So layman's terms, please. So yeah, it has been tricky, but and then I kind of, when I first came in, Dad and I butted heads quite a lot on where the business was going and all the rest of it. So, I ended up looking at a separate business, and Solid Athletics was a gym manufacturing company. So we kind of delved into that a little bit, but that was still good as well from a kind of business point of view, and giving me some good learning points. So.
And you were making steel frames, right?
Yeah, so it started, I guess the whole thing kicked off with like CrossFit, and all these CrossFit gyms were opening, and rigs and racks, as they were calling them, big steel frames where you could get multiple people on them. So we were like primed for that. I was like, yeah, great. So we did a couple in Edinburgh, and obviously I spent loads of time. And this is the other thing that kind of was a great learning process for me, is that I spent time on design. I spent time on learning about materials, specifications, installing the stuff,
finding customers,
pricing it, so it became a separate business in itself alongside Jenkins Fabrications. So yeah, we ended up doing gyms throughout Europe. Well, I say throughout Europe, we did 2 or 3 in Europe, a lot in the UK, and it was great. Yeah, great for learning. So,
and at what point then did you take the reins from on the fabrication side? Then?
Dad retired, I think it was about 2015, 16. I think just the stress levels of the business had got too much to him at that point, and one of the customers he'd been dealing with questioned his integrity, and that was just something that was just like, no, not dealing with. They'd kind of tried to blame something on us, so Dad just lost the plot. But he literally phoned down, stormed past us through the office and out, and we watched him like walking along. We're like, he's gone. It's like, he's out. And then all eyes just kind of turned to me. I felt that presence from the start of like, right, he's away, what are you doing? It's on you now. So that was kind of like 2016. So it was kind of like into the deep end as well with that. So,
and that was it. He didn't come back.
What he did do, which I think I can say this, but he worked 3 days a week, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, which, if you with the letters, made him a so we used to refer to him, we can literally call him a now because he's working Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So he did 3 days a week, kind of just working at home, but he never came down. And I say work, he was kind of just helping me out in the background, like just kind of wee things. But that only lasted, I think, 6 months or something. So I ultimately wanted him to be retired. I was like, look, I want you need your retirement. You've worked 40 years in the business. You've worked extremely hard.
It's very stressful.
Dealt with a lot of stress and pressure. And ultimately, he was the one that kind of built that. The second generation built it up to where it was and laid the foundations for us. So, I was quite pleased that he kind of stepped back a wee bit and to get time for himself.
Yeah. And so you hadn't come into the business at that point.
Nope.
And so when did, what's your story into it then?
So Jonny took over 2016. We got married in 2016. Had our first child 2017, second child 2019. And then just as I was planning to go back to work after having Hugo, Jonny was like, look, this might be quite a good time for you to come and join the business. There'll be a lot more flexibility. You can pick and choose your hours, work around the kids' schedule. So I thought, great. So January 2020, handed in my notice at work and thought I'll take a couple more months and I'll come and start March. And then obviously we all know what happened March 2020. So at that point, my contract with RBS had ended and Jonny had shut the business because that was what we did. We just said, right, we'll shut for 3 months or whatever it was. So literally all our eggs were in one basket and I'm making no income and we're like, oh my God, this could have been the worst decision we ever made. And also your mum was so ready to retire with your dad having retired a few years previous. So she was also like, oh God, Shona can't come and start until COVID's over. So it took a couple more months and then after the summer 2020 is when I officially started.
But we also didn't know if we had a business to go back to. That's one of the key points. I mean, it was quite terrifying that first month because a lot, the media, there's a lot of scaremongering about what was actually going on. Everyone experienced it. Yeah. And I was literally thinking, how do I plan for life after this if we can't open? Because, it sounds silly now in hindsight, but at the time you were literally like,
you just didn't know
what was going to happen. And we were thinking about jobs. We're thinking about,
our staff. That was
all the people that dedicated so many years of their life to working on our business. And you're like, what am I going to tell them? What are we going to do here? So,
but actually it seemed to be a huge turning point for us, didn't it? Because after COVID's just when things exploded and the house building industry, which we primarily worked to, just took off and we've just not stopped since.
No.
And with that then, because I know you spent quite a lot of time working on the strategy to kind of further grow the business, I guess from the good foundations that your dad had created, your mum and dad. And so tell us a little bit about that then, the strategy. And so
your dad walking out was a huge turning point and your mum leaving as well, because Jonny and I aren't afraid to take some risks and they'd run a very successful business, but we're happy with the way things were going, whereas we could see there's so much potential here.
Right.
And there's so many things that we wanted to do. So after they'd left, we thought, right, now we've got all opportunity to do things. So it was things like just everything was pen and paper. There was one phone in the office that if you phoned for someone, you had to pass it to the other person. There was no systems in place. Like, we updated our accounting systems, our phone systems, our ERP systems. We just weren't afraid to spend a bit of money investing in the right technologies. So yeah, and people.
So we've got like so many. We've got people who've been with us for nearly 38 years, 33, 30. There's
impressive, eh?
Yeah, and you're kind of looking at going, that's 38 years of his life he's given to our company, and it's we really appreciate that, you know. And so I think everything we've done is like how to, you know, not so much upskill. You know, you can upskill some people, but it's just what can we do to help make our staff's life a bit easier and a bit better, especially after coming out of COVID. So, you know, it might cost a little bit of money, but it's worth it in the end if we've got a happy workforce and they actually like working where they're working. So what
kind of things have you consciously done then and invested into to make life better for them?
There's a lot of upskilling stuff we've done with, you know, we've invested in a lot of new machinery, automation. We've brought in like private medical cover and life insurance stuff. It was just simple wee things that we were like, you know what, we should be doing that. That's something. So it's not even a like, oh, hum and haw of it. Just let's do it. Let's get it done. So yeah, we just kind of target certain things that we think will help. And you know, we do like away days and we do like a lot of stuff around well-being now and stuff like that as well. So anything we can do to trying to have a bit of positive impact with people. And we seem to be getting the loyalty back because there's obviously guys are sticking with us. They see the journey we're kind of going on, and a lot of them are quite keen to see where it goes because ultimately it might help them in their careers. So yeah,
we're ambitious, and we've got a sort of short and mid and long-term goal, and we take the staff on that journey with us, so they're clear of where we want to go and what we're trying to achieve. So when we throw something upon them, which we do quite often, there's usually method in the madness, and they can understand why we're doing what we're doing. So like investing in our plasma machine was a huge financial investment for us, and everyone was quite skeptical to begin with, and now, like the guys were saying yesterday, we couldn't live without it. So that's
so so when you announce these things, how do you take people with you then? How do you announce it and get them on board? What's the
that's a hard thing. It's hard because it's change, and ultimately people don't
change is difficult.
Change is difficult, yeah. I think what I tend to do is the communication things is just ultimately the best thing you can do is communicate as best you can. We have the kind of regular monthly chats with guys, but we also do every so often if we think there's going to be something coming up, we'll get everyone in and we have a open discussion with them about, right, look, we're thinking about this, but these are the reasons why, and this is why it's going to make our business better. So we try and take them with us, and ultimately if they know, well, I might get trained up on that. That's amazing. I've never been. So it's kind of, they kind of feel that empowerment to be like, right, great, I want to be a part of that. So, ultimately, we know it. They're not going to get everybody that wants to come on that journey with you, but I'm like, that's fine. And
we're also learning still what works and what doesn't work. So there has been some things that maybe haven't landed quite so well because we weren't clear with our communication. Or we jumped into something too quickly. So we're still learning. We're still figuring out the best way.
Yeah. And again, is there an example you can offer up there to say what you didn't get right, or that you're happy to talk about?
Yeah, I don't know if we've got anything off the top of my head.
Putting you on the spot here.
Putting on the spot. I'm sure some of the staff will probably tell us.
We should have asked them.
I know, but I think like the point is that we would recognize that. We know that we've done stuff that's not always going to work, and like we brought in a new ERP system that was great. It's basically manages your whole like process of like work coming in, job cards for the guys, drawings, invoicing. So it's your full process. And we've invested in the one we did, but I don't think it was right for us. It was maybe right for us just in the first year, but we've grown to a point now that they're like, okay, we need to change that. But the staff are all with us on it because they're like, yeah, that was a good idea bringing that in at the time. Now we've grown so much. We need a more we need a more sophisticated bit of software that's going to make our lives easier. So we know there's going to be a lot of like tough times over the next 6 months to bring that in, but they're willing to do it because they know what it will do in the end. So yeah, it's hard because we know we're sometimes like, oh God, this next 6 months are going to be tough trying to get this in. But ultimately, it's long game, long term. It's going to be better.
And at the beginning as well, right? It wasn't like, okay, right, you're in charge, right? Let's go. Yeah. That's taken a long time for you to build that trust and respect.
It has. Yeah. Well, I started in 2010, so Solid Athletics kind of ran. From about 2011 to 2016-ish. Oh no, sorry, maybe a wee bit up till COVID. It was kind of around about that point. So I was kind of butting heads with Dad a lot, and it wasn't really working. But when Dad stepped back, I had a couple of years of kind of finding my feet as managing director. So I wasn't making any rash decisions around that sort of time. I was kind of like, what's the plan? How are we going to do this? And it was, like I say, 2018, 19, it really started kicking that kind of strategic plan in place to grow the business. So
how have you found that kind of the bringing of the corporate concepts? Because you both come from corporate. Yeah. There's, you mentioned it's like, back in RBS, you know, like how do you take the corporate and the SME and smash it together effectively?
Yeah, really carefully. Because like you say, I was so conscious that I'd be like, we did it this way, or this is what we did at RBS. And everyone's like rolling their eyes like, here she goes again. Like, this is not a big corporate business. So it's literally been trial and error with a lot. So we've tried a lot of things that haven't worked. They've gone. The things that have worked have stuck, and we're consistent with them. But yeah, it's just taking some of the learnings. Obviously, working for huge companies, we've had to really scale down. But it's just understanding why we're doing something, the benefit to it, and them seeing the positive outcome ultimately gets them on board.
I mean, you talked earlier when we were off camera about the daily huddle. Yeah.
It's something that we lived and breathed at RBS. Every morning, 9 o'clock, let's meet, we'll have a chat, what's everyone's priorities for the day. And it just worked really well. It focused everyone, it got you straight into sort of work mode when you got into the office. And then on a Friday, we would debrief and say, how did that go? And it's something that we've introduced. And we tried a couple of times and it didn't stick. But about a year ago, we were like, no, we're doing this and we're going to keep with it. And we have. And
that's down to the office staff as well. They've really said, right, okay, this is not going away. Let's get on board with this. And I think we all see the advantages of doing it, even if you're like, oh God, it's a morning meeting thing, like 10 minutes, okay, but actually you come away from it going, oh great, that was,
and it's a really good opportunity for staff to say like, I'm a bit stressed out about this job, or about I've got too much on, or blah blah, and we can work with each other to say, what help do you need, how can we help you, let's make this easier.
And one thing about corporate, having been in that environment as well, is like, very kind of on the numbers.
Yes.
So how did that translate across to Jenkins when you came in?
When we started, so Johnny's mum dealt with all the financials. Everything was pen to paper. Even like keeping track of like invoices that had been paid. It was like get through the filing system and see if that invoice has been paid. Now, the scale that we've got to, that just wouldn't be feasible. So we thought we need a proper accounting system. But yeah, very old school before we started, like just make sure there's X amount in the bank. And if there's X amount in the bank, then you'll be fine. And we quite quickly realized that left us completely blind to what profits we were making, if we were making money on jobs, losing money on jobs. So we had to develop a system, and we're so on top of our numbers now that I feel like it helps make our decisions. So we can say, okay, we want to buy a logistics company. How do we make that work? Have we got money? Will we need to borrow? Whatever it might be. But we know now where we stand financially, which I think we were probably both blind to until we got our end of year accounts.
Yeah. And I think like Shona was saying, like the size of the business, like so within 5 years, we trebled the size of the business. So it's incredible. Like... and that came with a lot of problems and a lot of stresses, and we're talking about processes. I think we're saying, we didn't have it all right, but we had some in place to help us with that. And it obviously has worked to an extent. So, but the number side of things, getting to those levels, you're like, we'd have been absolutely lost if we hadn't upgraded a lot.
We'd have been blind. We'd have been completely in the dark.
Yeah.
But it's a key lesson for all SMEs as well to kind of get to the numbers. What is it they say, that numbers is the language of business.
Absolutely.
And if you don't know the numbers, you can't speak the language. So
we changed our accountant, and our accountant's a bit more hands-on with us, gives us a bit of like business development advice as well, a bit of chat around how with numbers and how the business is going. So that's great. But we're willing to spend them if it's going to give us like data out, so we can take information out of the business. We'll spend the money on it just to make sure we know where we're going.
Yeah.
And we're not blind to it.
Yeah. And you mentioned the logistics company, so tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so when we were looking at our numbers, we realised that yearly we were spending how much on logistics? 80,000?
Yeah, something like that, about 80,000.
On logistics, which was a huge chunk of our income. And we thought, and we get a lot of advice from those that work with us as well, who are saying we need our own form of transport. We have a small vehicle, but not a huge one. So we were constantly subtracting that to other people. So the opportunity arose. We worked with a local guy. We enjoyed working with him, very trustworthy. We thought, let's see if he's up for the idea of coming on board with Jenkins Fabrications. And it just worked out really well timing wise that he was up for selling and we were up for buying. So that's what we've done. Yeah. And it means that we're in control now. So before other people were in control of our transportation, whereas now we're in control. And it's also another service that we can offer our customers.
So there's a part of that might grow as well, adding more vehicles to the fleet as well. So you're kind of, covering all bases within your supply of your own material, but also we can supply other people's material as well. So in the construction sector. So it's good. Yeah, it's been really good. And so it's
obviously with kind of such excellent growth over the last 5 years as well. What's the secret? I mean, the secret to your success. Yeah. But what would you say are the key things that you've done that have kind of made you
investment in our people?
Yeah.
A really good structure. As Jonny said, there was only 3 people in the office when he started. That just wasn't enough to. So we've got the right people in the right places. So definitely investment in our people and their management as well. Investment in technology has been another huge one for us.
I think just continuing that service and kind of quality that we give as well in the industry. Like I think I do like to think that even from an outside, when I came into the business, I could see that people respected the name. I knew we could do a good job. So Dad had got the business to a point where he was quite happy with where it was at, and that's great, but he was looking one eye on retirement sort of thing. So he didn't really want to push the boundaries any further, which was absolutely fine. So when he retired, I was kind of like, right, I can do these couple of wee things that's going to take us a bit further. So, and one of the things was obviously the rebranding. We changed the name of the business from John Jenkins and Son to Jenkins Fabrications, and that was like a huge thing.
Yeah, just symbolised where we were at that point as a business.
A bit more professionalism about the business, that
we're not the small blacksmith in Falkirk anymore. Like, represented us as a brand as a much business, better.
Yeah. Great. And so, where are you going then? What's the future?
So I think we kind of, finding our feet with where we are now with like the way it's gone in the last 5 years, but we've definitely got plans to, it's like reinvesting in our premises, our people, and actually innovation. I think we've seen what 1 or 2 automated machines do. I really want to invest in our people and training them up on new machinery and things like that. So we're looking at new sectors. We want to try and move into new sectors, not just construction. I think we want to kind of delve out a bit, and I think that's really achievable with what we've done so far as a business. So it's kind of doing the same. We've been doing like chipping away at wee areas that we think that, well, there's a gap there, we can improve that, or we can do something. So I think we're essentially going to be doubling the size of our premises soon. Next year's with the plans. So we need to fill it with some work and people. But it's investing more in the people, and if we can train them up in more automation, that's what we want to do. We don't want to be the biggest employer. We want to just be the best company. So it's not. I've said that to guys. It's not all about being the biggest. We just want to focus on being the best company.
And I guess, are there any kind of projects or jobs that are particularly kind of interesting or iconic, maybe even? I don't know.
I don't know if there's that. I think you find that because we're house building mainly, and I think any new house building site you travel down, you'll probably see one of our vans, a lot of the ones that we're on. So, but we get into a lot of the big flat development where there's lots of steel required of all sorts. So we're doing loads of flats down in Leith at the moment, so there's a lot going on down there. We've done quite a few different facilities around recycling and things like that. So there's been movement. So I think we've got a good hold of what we do at the moment, and there's room for improvement there. But I definitely think moving into new sectors is going to be the way forward.
Is there like a dream thing you'd build? Do you know what I mean? I'd just love to have a big steel this.
Honestly, you wouldn't believe, like, see when I'm in the car with Jonny and he'll be like, oh my God, look at that steel. And it's like some building that's going up somewhere, and I'm like, all right, cool.
What a catch he was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think
it excites him so much. I'm like, okay.
It's quite sad, but do you know what? I'm really quite passionate about like the manufacturing sector in Scotland, and I think it's almost becoming a bit of the forgotten industry. And I work quite closely. Well, I say I work quite closely, but I've got a good relationship with Scottish Engineering, and there's so many opportunities for kids to get into the industry, and I want our business to be a kind of leading light of, they come to Jenkins because they're investing in top notch manufacturing facilities, and you've got training programs in place and things like that. So we really want to push in the manufacturing sector, and I don't think it gets pushed enough, to be fair.
It's interesting. We kind of joke there, didn't we? Really, but passion's really important.
Well,
isn't it?
yeah.
You know, to hear that you're passionate about your sector.
Yeah, I like the main reason I left. I think there was another thing I was speaking to my dad about this. So I loved my job as a surveyor. I learned a lot and it was great. But I just feel, me personally, seeing something tangible and seeing someone make something from nothing gives you so much pride. Like I see what our guys are capable of making, and I'm like, Jesus, how did you do that?
Yeah.
And it's a talent, and it's something that doesn't get sung about enough. So and I've see other companies through Scottish Engineering. It's just amazing the amount of SMEs in that sector that are producing some unbelievable stuff in our country. So yeah, I think definitely for like future employment and getting young kids into the industry, there's got to be a big push on that. So we want to be a part of that as well.
Yeah, and you've done that with apprentices, right? So
we're actually right now, we're going through this another kind of change that we're going is we're bringing in our own training program as well for all not just our apprentices, but everyone in the business. So we're kind of recognizing everybody, regardless of what level you're at, you're going to have some element of training. You might think you know it all, but there might be stuff that we can do that's going to help you. So apprentices, obviously a big focus on that. I think we've got 4 or 5 at the moment. And then, we still want to recognize the guys that are further up from that and say, like, we think you'd be good on this course. If you do that, that might help you in your job. So we're recognizing everyone and kind of creating like a kind of training academy for the company.
Yeah.
So
we're always scouting like local schools or colleges to be like, have you thought about welding? Like, have you thought about fabrication? Come and have a chat with us. So Great. Just trying to keep young people still enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, and as you say though, recruiting them from there, but also showing them a pathway to grow.
Yeah. And we can show them that at Jenkins Fabrications because we've got it. We've got like guys that started at 16 who have now been with us for 20 years, and they're like production manager or they're contracts manager, or they're still working on the tools, but they're the best at what they do, and they're coaching our younger members of staff that are joining. So yeah, you can definitely get that feel when you come out and see us.
Yeah, definitely.
Amazing. What is your guiding principle in business?
I'll go first. I thought about this, and I think like running a business is like, you feel it's really difficult. It's a difficult thing, and we've, kind of gonna a longer story here, but kind of, 2021, we had a moment where it was like really challenging, the workload that was coming in, dealing with some projects that weren't going right, just because of the amount of work coming in. And, I definitely hit a burnout where I wasn't coping. And it's just with everything coming at you, and our other staff are feeling it as well. So,
you kind of seek medical advice, and the advice you got given was have a holiday, and Jonny was like, well, that's not going to help because the problem's still going to be there when I get back from my holiday. Like I can't switch off.
Yeah, I was just like more like, oh, I'm gonna have to do something. I just feel I'm reaching burnout here, and I was like, I can't just take like 3 months off. That's not doable. But one of the things I did do is get a mentor and kind of someone to talk to about and give you it's not like telling you how to run the business, it's just someone there to talk to, and it was amazing. So kind of part of that like is a bit of resilience you need for running a business, I think, and being in business. I think you need to be prepared there's going to be setbacks, and I think you need to be prepared that not everything's going to go the way you see it going, but you have to basically get back up and get on with it. But I think kind of mainly, like I also think treating people with respect. I think, I've kind of said about how I came into the business and talked to our staff and how, I don't know how to do your job, but if you're treating your customers, your suppliers, your staff with respect, I think ultimately you should get that back. And if you're not going to get it back, well, that's probably not someone you want to deal with. So they can move over. So yeah, that's kind of it for me.
Nice. And for me, I think 2 things. One is seeing staff flourish. So I get real pride in seeing our guys learn new skills or have the confidence to do something that I know a year ago, 6 months ago, they wouldn't have been able to do. So giving them the opportunity and the growth and the space to do that gives me real pleasure seeing that. And often we think, does that give a member of staff an opportunity to do something new? And if it does, then we're like, great, let's do it. Let's give them that opportunity. And then the second thing, and it's maybe a bit cliche and a bit cheesy, but it's family and providing a life for our children that we want them to have. And when we make decisions, and like I said, we're not scared to make tough decisions, and at the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, what does this mean for us as a family, and is this the right decision for us? So that helps me in my decision making. And quite often when you come to me with a problem, I'll say, right, let's think about this as a family and what it means for us. So that's a big one for me.
Shona's the boss. She's the real boss at work.
Definitely not.
And with that,
thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. And we'll be excited to watch your journey as you continue to grow.
Thanks for having us.
well done.